Well, Matt, welcome to the Remarkable Retail Podcast here at Shoptalk. How you doing?
Excellent. Thank you for having me. Excited for the conversation.
Oh, you bet. Well, let's just jump right in now. I think like me and like Michael, you've been in retail pretty much your entire career. I think you're a little younger than I am, but let's not get into that. But you've been at Walmart, you've been at Macy's, now Stitch Fix. So you took the role and, Stitch Fix has had a little bit of a rocky road, right? And I think, among some other brands where people were like, these maybe haven't panned out quite what at least the venture capitalists thought, but that's maybe a different conversation. What was it that really got you interested in the opportunity in the first place? And then we'll get into kind of how things are going and where you're headed.
So, I've been passionate about retail my entire life. Long before I was at Walmart or Macy's or in this role at Stitch Fix, I grew up immersed in a retail family business and was working there through my childhood. And in high school, I would drive from school and manage the local store. And I was always very passionate about how can we best serve clients and how do you get to know your client as well as possible. And in furniture, that meant when they walked in the door, what are the right questions to ask in order to understand what they're looking for, their unique characteristics, and what is the best service or offering that we have to meet or exceed their needs. And as my career progressed, that really took on the form of what kind of technology or innovation can we use in order to create the absolute best client experiences. And if you fast forward through that career journey, that opportunity at Stitch Fix became a no-brainer.
Yeah.
At Stitch Fix, we know more about every client before their very first transaction than most other retailers get to know over the entire lifetime relationship that they have.
Yeah.
We know their style preferences, we know all of your fit attributes, we know all of your budget parameters, and through that, we can deliver industry-leading superior services. And I felt very confident that we'd be able to fully realize that vision for Stitch Fix and ensure that we create this superior retail experience. That is at the heart of the transformation that we've undertaken. And now we're firmly embedded in the growth phase of that transformation. We've delivered 4 consecutive quarters of positive revenue comps. So I feel really good about the progress that we've made and even more excited about the future.
Yeah, excellent. So maybe just step back for a second because you come from a more traditional retail background, and we want to get into the Stitch Fix story more, but I'm just curious your perspective being in retail a long time, and I guess even before you thought about coming to Stitch Fix. We've talked a lot on the podcast about all this excitement about some of the digital disruptors. A lot of them haven't panned out in the way people thought. Some clearly have. What's just your take on what people got wrong about that investment journey for some of these disruptors, and really, I guess, what's different today, as you step into the role, but been in the role for a little while?
So Stitch Fix really understood that at the core, it's how well do you know your client? And then how can you create the most personalized experience to deliver the best result for them? And at the initiation of that journey for Stitch Fix 15 years ago, that meant how do we pair industry-leading product recommendations with expert human stylists to create these really incomparable client experiences. And the opportunity that we had to fully realize that vision today is how do we continue to evolve that? How do we continue to innovate and effectively disrupt ourselves while staying true to that core? And through our transformation, we worked very hard to understand where the client was at, what the client was looking for, and how we could uniquely meet their needs.
Yeah.
And then we reimagined the client experience with all of those client insights and all of the latest technology and innovation in mind. And as a result of that, we now have an experience that is unrecognizable from 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's completely unrecognizable from what was that Stitch Fix experience from its founding and for the first decade that we were in business. And I think that opportunity remains true, that you have to always challenge yourselves. Are you meeting the client where they are today? Are you working hard to ensure that you're going to exceed their needs tomorrow? And are you continuing to leverage the latest technology and innovation so that you're appropriately leading in that space?
Matt, can I take you back to when you first landed, or even before you first landed at Stitch Fix? I mean, many retail CEOs have a bias for action. I mean, that's part of our industry, right? So how did you, what was your animating principle about how you were going to come into an organization, probably as a change agent, and not immediately start And it can feel frenetic sometimes. Okay, we're got to really chair. We're doing a left turn. But you set out a 3-part plan very deliberately. And later I'm going to ask you about how the external world viewed that. But I'm very curious about how the organization feel that, the people around you, the people, okay, we got a new person in the chair. What's going to be different? Is this going to be more successful, and how and when? How did you take that on?
One of the things that I love about retail is the simplicity of it. You have the right product at the right time for the right client at the right price, and are you delivering the right experience? Because of that simplicity, it's that much harder to win. It's that much harder to create an even better experience.
It sounds very simple. It sounds very simple.
It is. It is very simple formula.
Yeah.
But because of the simplicity of the formula, that's where that ultimate challenge is in order to ensure that you're serving clients better than anyone else, that you're gaining market share, that when clients are making a decision where to shop or where to spend their money, they're choosing you. And at the core of that is making sure that you have an incredibly strong foundation for your business. You want to make sure that you have a strong tech platform. You want to make sure that your financial foundation is secure. You want to make sure that you've instituted retail best practices across the board. And that was at the core of our transformation. In the very first phase, we had to rationalize the business in order to deliver that strong foundation. In the second phase of the transformation, we wanted to rebuild and reimagine the experience. And only if you invest and take the time to do those first 2 stages right, do you get to the third, which is growth. And you can take shortcuts, but just as in life, if you take a shortcut, often you're going to end up with a disaster as a result at some point down the line. And for me in particular, I always wanted to make sure that long term we were delivering the absolute best client experience to deliver the absolute best shareholder value.
And bring your people along with you, right, in that journey. I mean, that's got to be. I don't know if job one is as you rationalize, restructure the business. Everyone knows that let's get on a path to success. Speak to that just for a minute about how you engaged. Did you have town halls regularly? I mean, what was communication like in those early days?
We have a phenomenal team at Stitch Fix. And the thing that I loved the most about the team when I joined was how passionate they were about our core operating principles. They knew that we had something special.
The mission, right?
The mission. Absolutely.
Nothing motivates and galvanizes like a singular mission, right?
And you feel really lucky when you walk in the door and your team, very clearly is passionate about the mission. And the team was also equally eager for how do we realize that mission. So I worked really hard, both from a town hall forum and one-on-ones and roundtables, to immerse myself in the business, to immerse myself with our clients, and to immerse myself with our employees. And I think if you really lean in hard to understand the business, understand the employees, and understand the clients better than anyone else, you start to gain trust, you start to gain credibility, you start to earn confidence. And that was effectively my first 90 days. And coming out of those 90 days, that's when we kind of rolled out more formally what was this transformation office. And the team, I give them a lot of credit. They were really passionate about it, really excited, and bought in, and we got to work.
Well, let's talk about the other audience that you're speaking to, the analyst audience. You're a publicly traded company, which is a spotlight, particularly in an organization. I think everybody was cheering for you. You certainly had a lot of momentum from the analyst perspective. How did you bring or position or bring them along in that journey and say, okay, it's not going to happen immediately, but we have a plan?
There's really 2 important things there. The first is I think you have to be very transparent about what is that plan and how long it's going to take. If you promise immediate results and you don't deliver, then you end up in a really bad position. If you are careful to articulate exactly what is the work that needs to be done and how long that will take, and then what is the result that you seek to achieve at the end of it, then you at least gain that understanding and that buy-in, and potentially the right patience for that journey to unfold. And the second piece, which is critically important, is your say-do ratio. So at the end of the day, from an investor and an analyst perspective, did we do what we said we were going to do? Or ideally, did we do even better than we said we were going to do?
Hit the marks, hit the numbers. This is what we committed to over the course of time. So, I mean, was the analyst community, were they receptive to these kind of messages?
They were, and that's because we spent the time with them for them to understand what exactly was that opportunity and what is the work that needed to be done. And because, they're subject matter experts in their own right, they understood that. It made sense to them. And, they stayed tuned. And the reality is, not only did we do what we said we were going to do, we did it on a much faster timeline than we initially committed to. And we returned to growth about 6 quarters earlier than we anticipated at the initiation of our transformation.
So we're sitting here at Shoptalk, and the conference theme is retail in the age of AI, which is kind of funny because, as many people would know, AI is not super new, and I think Stitch Fix was in the age of AI quite a long time ago now. But obviously, things have evolved, things have changed. So I'm interested in really how you balance where you guys are in state-of-the-art AI with the human factor, with empathy and that balance. Because I think you've been really, not that you weren't working on that previously, but I think that's really at the forefront right now. So could you just kind of describe the role of technology, the role of humans, and how that really works to serve the customer better?
So if I go back to one of the primary reasons why I was so enamored with the Stitch Fix opportunity, it's because of how well we knew our clients in advance and all of that data that we had access to that we could uniquely use to serve these superior client experiences. And retail in the age of AI, the quality of an AI experience is only as good as the data that you're putting into it. And that is a competitive advantage for us. It's at the core of what we do. And it's an example of like why our Stitch Fix Vision experience that we launched last fall is one that has driven such phenomenal satisfaction and engagement from our clients. And in that experience, a client uploads a selfie and a full body image, and then they see their digital self rendered, dressed head to toe in Stitch Fix apparel and accessories. And because of how well we know our clients, all of the clothing and accessories we know is going to align to their style preference. We know that it's going to fit them, if and when they purchase it and it arrives in their home. And we know that it's going to match what are their budget expectations on a shopping journey. And that alone is something that I believe is unique to us in our ability to serve AI experiences that are truly valuable for each individual that's receiving them. The second piece of it, which is equally important, is in apparel, it's a nuanced category. There is taste, there is style, there is human emotion involved. And we have our expert human stylists that can then serve that need for our clients. And we're similarly creating both back-end and client-facing AI tools that empower our stylists to serve clients even better. So an example of that is our AI style assistant. And one of the things that we heard loud and clear from clients and from consumers alike is in this really nuanced category of apparel, clients have a hard time articulating what it is they're looking for. For those that are in the industry, it might seem obvious to talk about what styles or trends or patterns or fabrics they're looking for. But for 99% of the population, that's a foreign language. And we created a very bespoke tool for them so that they could articulate in plain language what they're looking for. And the AI style assistant serves them back basically what that would look like in industry jargon, along with visual representations to say, did I get this right? And you can work with the AI style assistant to continue to evolve what they're building for you. But once you get it right, all of that information passes to their human stylist. And then the human stylist is then better able to serve those clients going forward.
Is it fair to say that the human stylist is kind of the relationship manager powered by all this technology, essentially? Am I kind of getting that?
The human stylist plays multiple roles for us at Stitch Fix. One of them, absolutely, is building that real human relationship. I'm a stylist myself.
I was going to ask you about that. I think you said that I was at the Burns & Co. breakfast, and I'm like, did I just hear that right, that you're a personal stylist for, what did you say, 8 people?
I have a few dozen clients. Yeah.
Well, he's added you too. He has a few. He told me he had a few notes for you. So
no doubt. Just make sure, and like you did with the Alex partner, put me in the context of Vegas. I loved how you actually the AI did that.
Will do.
Here's how you look in the main street during F1 in the middle of Vegas.
Yeah, we can do that. But as a stylist, and you just learn and you see firsthand how deep and enduring these relationships are that you build with clients. Often our stylists are the first people to find out, if someone's getting married in their family, if someone's expecting, if someone got a new job, if they're moving to a new geography. And those relationships are extremely powerful. And at times they touch things that are also very human. Like if a client is on a GLP-1 medication and they're going through a body transformation, a very unique need state for a client, but one that we are also uniquely able to serve through this experience that we provide.
So maybe talk about the elephant in the room, agentic commerce, friend or foe?
At Stitch Fix, we're going to continue to challenge ourselves. How are we creating experiences that serve our clients? And I think when you're looking at apparel retail, that human connection that's really important, all of those human elements that are really important, I continue to believe that in the majority of use cases, you're going to want that human in the loop. You're going to want that human in the loop either through direct contact or through a curational lens, or even just having the confidence that they're in the background, ensuring that everything with your relationship with the brand is going well. There are moments, when I do think agentic commerce could serve really important purposes within the Stitch Fix ecosystem, and we'll bring those to life appropriately. But I think the unique value add that we have is the confluence of AI capabilities with the expertise of that human stylist.
As you think about the brands you carry, and I know you've been developing more private brand, private label, how does that figure out? I'm not sure what my question is exactly here, but there's this whole idea in agentic commerce that unless you have brand authority, and I think that's both the destination as a retailer, but it's also the brands you carry, how do you make sure you win? Well, I guess, do you believe the premise of that's a real risk? And if you do see it as a potential risk, how do you navigate how that might change your business model over time?
So in terms of how we go to market and how we acquire clients and how we tell our story, we have a really powerful narrative. I believe, upwards of 90% of the population can uniquely serve them to provide a superior retail experience. And within each of those demographics, we just have to go out and tell our story. And when we do that and bring them into the proprietary Stitch Fix ecosystem, we then have an opportunity to win nearly all of their wallet share. That we can be their retailer of choice for all of their apparel, accessories, and footwear needs. And that's what we see in the client interactions that we have. That's what we see in the data, that we've been able to ascertain from our clients. And we continue to make sure that we have the leading assortment of brands, as well as the highest quality and value private brands in our portfolio. And we'll continue to challenge ourselves to ensure that we're doing that going forward.
All right, well, let's talk. You mentioned during the Burns & Co. breakfast that I think you were at the very first Shoptalk. It's the 10th Shoptalk. Let's talk about cast our minds forward to the 15th edition of Shoptalk. As you think about where the organization will be then and what you've accomplished and what you could kind of think is your biggest milestones, and I did this, we did this, more importantly. Talk about that for a bit.
Absolutely. So where we're at today, and what that founding mission was for Stitch Fix, is the most personalized retail shopping experience. I feel really confident that we are reclaiming that position as the innovator within apparel retail. And as we continue to go down that path, that future experience is one where that personalization comes through at every touch point in the client journey. And you think about how we can utilize the platforms that we've been leaning into, like Stitch Fix Vision, where you see yourself embedded head to toe in apparel and accessories, and you could do that everything from onboarding through all of the shopping journeys and client and stylist interactions that we have, and that we can also make sure that the AI capabilities that we're building and the touch points with human stylists continue to be more and more personalized as well. And when you do that, you're effectively creating what is the superior shopping experience for each person at an individual level. If any of us are going into the Stitch Fix ecosystem, effectively we're each going to be having our own nuanced, unique experience to meet and exceed our needs at every touch point.
The narrative, they did it. They achieved what everyone was talking about exactly on point. Now, for the listeners and for the viewers on YouTube, you're wearing a very fetching bomber jacket. Could you tell us a little bit about that bomber jacket?
Yeah, so one of the places where we are utilizing AI for innovation right now is in our private brand product development. So we really challenged ourselves, how can we take all of this industry-leading proprietary data that we have on our clients, on the market, on style, on trends, and also on all of our private brands. We have now an AI platform that enables us to do 100% of our physical product development within our private brand portfolio. And the bomber jacket that I'm wearing today is an example of that. And the tool is one where I can actually go into it and start to take, this is the Commons as a private brand within men's, as well as my own personal personas and all the data that we have, again, for myself, and design product. And that is how this bomber jacket was born.
Yeah.
I'm actually wearing a prototype, but the jacket is now for sale at Stitch Fix.
And if I was going to go search Stitch Fix, what would I search for that bomber jacket?
So while I helped design the jacket itself, I did not name it. It is the Matt reversible bomber jacket, and it's under the Commons label.
What a coincidence!
And what a coincidence! And but it's great. And as I mentioned earlier too, it's reversible. So if you're traveling or going to
Multiple
conference,
uses.
you get a twofer.
Well, that's awesome. Matt, thanks so much for joining Steve and I on the Remarkable Retail Podcast. Real treat to meet you, and congratulations on what you've been able to achieve so far, and we wish you continued success. And if some folks listening wanted to get a hold of you or learn more about Stitch Fix, where should they go?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Once again, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.